First of all, I come in peace, okay? Because some things I'm going to show you maybe are not quite how you do them. What I want to show you are just specific use cases where some things worked and some things did not. So you have some ideas about things to keep in mind when you're designing your search experience. Does it still sound OK to everyone? Anybody wants to leave? I had to give this little caveat here, right? My name is Vitaly, and I'm one of the co-founders of Smashing Magazine, magazine for designers and developers. But much of my time these days is not spent in the magazine. Much of my time is spent in consultancy projects with small and large organizations where we try to fix things. Most of the time, the reason why I'm brought in is to bring or improve clarity and minimize errors. That's what I'm good for. I'm not good in Figma. Anybody Figma people? Yes, one person. That's a very proud person. That's great. I'm not great in, oh, all right, OK. Well, maybe we'll see about that. So I'm not good in Figma. I'm not good in Photoshop, but I'm good in one specific thing. That's Excel. Anybody excited about Excel? I'm very excited about Excel. That's surprising. So I spent a lot of time thinking and planning. Now, I want to share with you today some of the things to keep in mind when we're thinking about search. There will be 12 of them, and of course, you'll get the slides as well. And very many of them might be very much aligned to what you're doing anyway, right? But just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. And we can just go ahead and dive right in, because I think that one thing we already covered today in the morning, which is all about making search visible, right? This is actually quite surprising, because most of the time you don't get this, or you don't kind of get this very strong sense of urgency about showing search. Kind of got to this idea that hiding search is a good idea behind an icon or anything else, but it also brings some issues. Like specifically when I think about many e-commerce experiences around us, you will often find this kind of pattern. Search icon, you open it up, you have a text box showing up. Relatively small text box as well, right? And then you can start searching in there. And every now and again, whenever you're actually searching, you get these flashes of new content coming in, right? Freeze. Of course, we've all seen this 1,000 times. Sometimes it gets a little bit messier because, and I mean, I'm not talking about like small websites or large websites, it doesn't matter. These are just really specific examples that come up quite a lot. Here's another one from Gantt, right? And here we don't get the icon, we get the label, search. Many people will have a very hard time finding it, right? On the other hand, you also get sometimes this, which is a very, very small input box with a very small icon, which often is inaccessible or very difficult to even read. That often brings up one important issue or problem. And this brings me to this session that Luke Wroblewski spoke, like he's a Google, like a head of design at Google. He spoke about it a while back, where he said this, the most important thing we need to think about is what do we show and what do we hide? That's ultimately the most important part. When he was speaking about it, he actually brought it up with a couple of examples. This is very common. Welcome to the typical e-commerce experience 2023. Is anybody excited about this? Excellent. We want to see a newsletter box, because why not? You get to the page, you didn't even have a chance to explore a product, but you're going to get a newsletter pop-up, right? You close it, you get this. Still with me? Does it feel like 2023? Maybe it's the future. The future is going to look like this. We have an app install banner, a promotional banner, and icon-based navigation. I think it's because 2 microphones, it creates this really strange echo. Can I remove it? Or not? We should have a vote, should we? No, let me just remove it, and if you can't hear, just throw it out of the window. That would work. Okay, I'm going to keep it. No. Okay. I'm not a big fan of. We can turn it off. That's a good idea. Oh, this is technology right there. That's great. So the important part is, right? We often get this. We have an app install banner, we have a promotional banner, icon-based navigation feature. So let's see what happens. Most of the time, people, of course, will remove one of the banners, and this is what they get. Icon-based navigation, feature, category links. You'll see where I'm going with this in just a moment. When we look into data, most times you will see one single thing. If you hide something, you will reduce engagement towards those actions. Like, for example, here. You have 2 tests, like one test without any navigation, all the main navigation behind the hamburger icon. Who invented the hamburger icon? The horrible, horrible invention ever. It's like, I'm diverging altogether. There are 2 kinds of pages on every website. navigational pages, content pages. When you have a navigational page, like a home page, show navigation. There is no reason to hide navigation behind a hamburger icon. Show navigation on navigational pages. If you want to go, let's say, to gov.uk, the worst thing you can do is just have a carousel highlighting all the benefits of things. Just show a lot of links. There's no harm in that. The same goes for search as well. So if you show navigation, surprise, surprise, you get more engagement and people actually going there. You also end up with an increase in completed orders. Okay. You also try it in a different, like a very different use case. Again, increase in revenue as well by showing things, right? So this also goes, of course, for search. If you replace that icon, as we saw in the morning, right, with a, I don't know, miraculous invention, a search box. Do you have any fans of search boxes? Maybe because they're working on a search box solution, right? So if you compare side by side with search box, without search box, the thing that we saw, like the case study we saw in the morning, is very, very typical. You will definitely increase the amount of people searching on mobile and on desktop. So if you show search, you will end up with more searches. Now, let me show you what it ended up working, how it ended up working for us. Right? We used to have a search icon. Then we moved away to this very simple pattern right here. Can you guess when we actually made that switch? The amount of searches actually increased by 40% just by doing that switch. Why, right? So that's important. So if your search is working well, it's a good idea to show it, both on mobile and on desktop all the time, right? If you want people to search, it's probably a good idea to show search. That's not very surprising, but quite important. But that's not enough. One idea is to show search. The other thing is to understand how well it's performing. So one of the things we started working on are so-called design KPIs for search. We need to understand that just how well search is performing on our side. So for that, we go ahead and we try to track the quality of search experience for people who are actually using search. Like, for example, again, the example that we saw in the morning today, right, with sea salt, really nice example of just that, kind of really looking into how we can improve the quality of search. So these are my search KPIs. I'm working not in e-commerce sometimes, but also in European Parliament. And in European Parliament, we have, guess what, search. In fact, we don't have just one search. We have 19 different search engines. They have different interests, different users, and also serve different audiences. Now, these are all the things I have to track when it comes to an experience, a search experience. Like, for example, when it comes to accuracy of data. How difficult, hold on, let me see if it works. Show itself. Here we go, right? So when we look at accuracy of data, I want to make it extremely difficult for people to make mistakes in search. How do we do that? Well, suggestions, right? We need to eliminate problems by not allowing people to plug them in or type them in. So we were looking at actually making accuracy of data of people typing in as good as possible. That also means, for example, that we need to count how many zero results pages are we getting, or users are getting, right? So that gives us a kind of an idea, an idea about the quality of search as well. But also things like time to complete, hold on, okay. Also things like time to complete, like how much time do people actually spend in search? It really walks away for me, right? How often or how quickly do people actually get to relevant results? Like very often we are really so tied in with this idea of let's increase the duration of people spending on page. Actually, increasing the duration of people spending in search results is a really bad idea. Why is that? We don't want people to search, we want people to find. That's very different behaviors. We don't want people to spend more time in search results. We want them to spend less time in search results. And then you go to things like frequency of errors, right? Again, when no search results are available. We also track, and this is like one of the first things that we do. All right, for 2022, for that given e-commerce site, I'm going to go in and say, what are the top 100 queries that came our way? What are people searching? On that list, I go to our editors, content managers, content producers. I'm going to check or ask them, could you please give me a relevant result that needs to be displayed once people search for this? What is the canonical relevant page that we need to display, right? And then we're going to track what is the match of the result that we are providing to those people who are searching, right? With the actual relevant result that they need to get. Most of the time, you would get less than 15%. And that we need to increase over time. That's very, very tactical in a way, right? You really understand, is it working or is it not working? And it kind of keeps going and going and going. One thing that we started doing with the parliament, for example, is environmental impact. Anybody working in any kind of environment, we're actually designing an environmental or reducing an environmental impact to the minimum is really critical. I mean, talking about CO2 emissions or talking about the carbon impact. Obviously, the more pages you're viewing, the more irrelevant pages you're viewing as a result of bad search, the more impact it also has in carbon emissions, right? Not surprising. So I want people to be able to get to just the right relevant results as quickly as possible. So what we do with this is we track, not necessarily all of them, that will depend on the project, and we create a dashboard like this, right? That will depend on the project. And then we're measuring how well we're performing. That means we have top 100 search queries. So we bring people every 4 to 6 months, depending on the velocity of the team, and we ask them, please try to find this. Please try to find that. They have a list of 20 searches that they need to perform. We track how much time do they need to actually get anywhere, how often they make mistakes. If they do encounter mistakes, how often do they recover, how quickly do they recover from those mistakes, and how successful they are in general, right? And this gives us a framework to work within. Does that make sense? So that's very rigid in a way, but this is very user-centric as well, right? So establishing those KPIs is very, very important. But kind of moving forward, we also need to understand a little bit better what is it that people actually want to search for. Because very often we assume that everything is keywords-based, but it doesn't have to be. You'll find a lot of other alternatives or kind of other options as well. I like lists and I like checklists. Sorry about that. These are all the different kinds of searches we might have, right? So this is really like a kind of relatively extensive list. But when you're working in e-commerce, you need to have a very, oh, sorry, for the photo moment. Yes, but you'll get the slides anyway, so that's okay, right? But here's the thing. Most of the search engines I was working with, they do not really distinguish between different kind of types of searches. Now, sometimes you have this exact search. We know how this works. Sometimes you have a product type kind of search. We know how this works. Sometimes you get feature search. We kind of know how this works. Sometimes you also start getting in a bit more difficult kind of areas where you get thematic search. Like, for example, somebody is looking for a gift for Easter, right? We need to support something when Easter is coming up, right? But it keeps going. You also get site content search. And you would think, well, people surely use help and contact to find this piece of information. No, 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 no. They just use this wonderful magical search box that some of you are really enjoying, right, to get there. So it is actually quite common to see some e-commerce retailers where the most common thing that people are asking for or looking for is return policy. Not a product, not jeans, not blouses, return policy, right? So we need to support that. And then also compatibility. Right? That's another story. And this is not comprehensive. It keeps going. There are more different kinds. We really just need to know what kind of searches do we need to support, right? Recommendation search and other things, right? So again, you get the list of all of this, but we need to be very, very clear just what kind of searches do we want to support. OK, this is the boring stuff. Sorry about that. Let's get into something that's a little bit more exciting. When we look at typical autocomplete, like this, right? Nothing surprising here, really. But when we look at it in a bit more detail, and I like doing that, I like kind of really going in and going frame by frame into recordings with actual users to see what they are doing, and most importantly, what they're not doing. So in here, when we go on bol.com, let me just find my cursor here, right here. So this is how it typically works. Right? Welcome to the world of search box. So you tap, nothing appears. Nothing. So you tap on the search box, nothing appears. That's very common. Like sometimes you get trending products. Sometimes you get suggested categories. Sometimes you get recent searches that you've done in the past, right? Those kind of things. Sometimes you see nothing when you tap on that search box. Why is it a big problem to not display anything? It is actually quite common. People don't know what they can search for. Right? That's one thing. And something else? Yes, yeah, that's a good point as well. Yes, good points. The problem is that if you do not show an indicator that there are going to be suggestions, how can people know that there are going to be suggestions? What happens is we assume that people will surely see the suggestions. That should be OK. But a good number of people, we just don't know how many, never look at the screen while typing. They never look at the screen. They always look at the keyboard. There is a good number of people for every website I was working on. It might be 1%. It might be 0.4%. It doesn't matter, right? You will have some people who always look on the keyboard when they're typing. So good luck showing them suggestions. They will not pay attention to them. Or if they will, only when it's too late. Like imagine they keep typing, 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 and then you have 0 results. And you're wondering, why do people get 0 results? We have such an incredibly sophisticated search autocomplete. Well, they don't see it, right? So that's important. So we absolutely need to make sure that whenever you hit that box, that input box, we show something on click or on tab, right? Because people will never look at the keyboard at all. And there are different ways of doing this. Like, there are plenty of ways of doing this. This is one of them. We have a search box, and we have suggestions, and then we have results coming up as you hover over some of the suggestions that come up, right? The problem is it's flashing. Why is it flashing all the time? It's a bit annoying. So you just want to search, and every time you do something, like you add a letter or character, it just keeps flashing. That's a bit annoying, isn't it? How can we fix that? Obviously, whenever we have search queries, we need to hit or kind of ask the server, please give us results, right? I mean, that takes some time. So how do we fix that? Any ideas? It needs time, right? Well, what I found out is, do we need necessarily to show results when we don't know what people are typing? Maybe we can allow them to select what is it that they actually want to see first, and then give them these productive recommendations. This could actually be very frustrating to people and really detract them and move them away from using search altogether. You can also do just nicer, right? By actually being a bit more predictive around how we're displaying those recommendations. Like, for example, here we're typing nothing. We see something. That's already good. Let people finish their input and move on, or kind of hold on or pause for a moment. As long as there is no typing, then maybe we can start kicking off the recommendation from the server, right? And this is a very nice example of Flying Tiger doing just that, right? Let things be a little bit slower than needed. Let me give you another example, which is a little bit off topic, but still might be relevant just to prove a point. So when we look at something like a big e-commerce retailer from Switzerland called Galaxus, right here. So if I type in, let's say, shoes, Schuhe in German. OK, so it was a little bit too fast. OK, I'm on a slow connection here. OK, so we get this. Oh, excellent. Fantastic. Great. OK, I'm going to be redirected. Beautiful. And then again. Beautiful. One more time. Maybe. It is a little bit slow. Slower than I was expecting. Sorry about that. But I can actually still show it on the video because I recorded it, just in case. Oh, it's here. All right. So what we get here is this. So we have these filters, right? We obviously have search still. And we have these results. What I really like about Galaxus is it's very respectful in many ways. So you go ahead, you select your category. Look in the back. Nothing is changing unless I tell it, please change. Meaning, you go ahead, you select a couple of things here, and maybe this. This gets updated. Nothing is changing in the back. It's only when I click on the button where changes are going to happen, right? Again, you might feel like this is slow. Well, yes, it is slow, but it gives people, again, control. They feel much more like they're in a calm space, which is actually a reasonable idea. So it doesn't apply only to search. It also applies to filters, right? A few other ideas here is thing that you can do, and this is the most boring thing ever, give people an indicator that there is a drop-down experience, like autocomplete. It could be a search icon. It could be this drop-down icon, anything. So they know that there is a selection or an interactive component in there. This is something they will appreciate, right? And again, as you start typing, we need to start showing something immediately, right? You know what else people do a lot? People like copy-pasting. A lot. Like if I ask you, let's say you have an input field or a sign-up form, and the form asks you for your email, and then asks you to verify your email. Who will copy-paste the email address you typed in the first place in the second input field? How would you feel if they block you, huh? You cannot copy paste. Good luck, it's blocked. How does it make you feel inside? Angry? Frustrated? How dare them telling me what I can and cannot do? That's not fair. No, people like copy pasting to the point they will copy paste their first and last names. Really, the people just go ahead and copy paste all the time. This is like this ongoing copy paste experience. And especially in e-commerce, it's so common. People go ahead, they copy paste what? Well, they copy paste, for example, things like model name or article number. Most of the time, most e-commerce retailers do not support that. So this is what people typically do in usability testing. When you ask them, can you see if you can find it anywhere cheaper or anything, they go ahead, they mark the entire title, copy paste it in another retailer that they tend to use a lot, and see if this shows up. And if it doesn't, they assume it's not there, right? But if you are tracking this for your main competitors, and you have a decent pricing, you might really pick up some people who would be leaving otherwise. That's what Love is doing from Amazon, right? They support everything that's in there. Like every single search query that comes up that is on Amazon is considered, I will put it this way, by Love as well, right? Quite interesting to see this happening there, right? Another thing that's also quite interesting is the idea of just how many items we're going to display. So what you see sometimes on some applications is this notion of let's show everything. Like, let's show everything. Again, it shows up in very different scenarios as well. Not only in search. This is my favorite website ever. I'm going to show it. I mean, I'm really getting off track here, but I think it's still relevant. This is the one. If you just show so many results, you end up with this kind of experience. This is one of the most popular, by the way, financial screeners around the world. This is filters. Welcome to 49 filters. All look like what? Well, drop-downs. This is the world of drop-downs here. The world of drop-downs. And we have a lot of options for each. And on top of that, we also have 8,292 rows in a table, right? Plus, on top of that, we end up with this pagination, right? So I always wanted to ask if there are any people in the room who wake up in the morning one day and think, today, I'm going to go to page number 42. That's the page I'm really looking forward to. These things don't happen. So when we throw people a lot of stuff, be it complex navigation, like here are all, well, that hurt. Here are all the navigation options we've got. Here are all the filters we've got. Here are all the search results we've got. We get this kind of experience. It's frustrating. It's annoying. People leave, right? So that's not ideal. We just need to show people things that are relevant to them, and ideally not show things that are likely to be irrelevant to them. So coming back here then, what does it mean? Showing so many options is problematic. Why is that? People can scan. So why is showing all of those things problematic?
Choice paradox.
Yes, here we go. We get to this choice paralysis. People just like, all right, I don't know. All of this is just too much, just too much. So what you can do, and this seems to be working better, is to keep track of just how many items we display on mobile and on desktop. Maybe on mobile, we could go to, we just need to keep in mind that on mobile, 40 to 50% of the screen is covered by keyboard, virtual keyboard, of course. Doesn't leave us a lot of space. And so we end up with 4 to 8 items we can show on mobile, 8 to 10 items at most we can show on desktop. And of course, we could use scroll bars. And there is no person in the world who I met in usability testing and said, oh, I wish there was a scroll bar. Not like within that list of search results. Nobody, right? These people do not exist. I don't believe that they exist either, right? So we need to make sure that people actually, it all fits in what people are going to see, right? And so this is quite significant as well, right? But at the same time, I think one issue that we have here, which we need to address, is that everything is a little bit too similar. Like just a little bit similar. There are no distinctions. There is no contrast over here. So we might want to improve that as well. And I think there are a couple of good examples of this as well. So here's one, again, from Nike, where, again, the same problem, actually. You type in Jordan, and you get 4 Jordans. They're the same, but they're slightly different products. Sorry, this was not the good example I wanted to highlight. So right here, 4 Jordans. What's the difference between them? Do you know? Different kinds of products? How can you know? You don't know. So when you get this, you get to this notion of, is search really working? Well, is it what it's supposed to do? Right? So there's just different products which kind of symbolize or identify it in the same way. Here's another one. This is Mintra from India. And you get this issue where when you start typing, you have watches, and sometimes you have typos in that overview of suggestions. And sometimes you get watches for men, and then men watches, and then watches in brackets man. What is the difference? Like, what are we talking about here? So there's like a really fundamental lack of proper taxonomy information architecture here as well. Or here's one from Sears, right? Also, you get dumbbell, and it's all just really different syntax, different ways of writing things, sometimes in kilograms, sometimes in pounds, and just, like, again, extremely inconsistent. Now, it's very difficult to solve this, of course. I mean, in our experience, like in my experience, we have millions of documents tagged differently, differently structured, no proper metadata, so getting this right is very, very hard. But this is ultimately what really drives people away from search. I mean, ideally, what you want to do is to make sure that what you're displaying is at least distinct for your top 100 search queries. That's the minimum you want to achieve, right? And if you can improve the search even better, then that's better, right? So, and of course, as we keep going, you can show only keyword suggestions, but it doesn't have to be only that. We can also really create this sort of contrast by showing other things as well. Like here, on Flipkart in India again, depending on what is it that you're searching for, you're going to get category previews, you're going to get products, you're going to get, oh, hold on, let me just go back here, right? You're also going to get previous searches, and it all looks a little bit different, right? And this is pretty much how it should be. That's only reasonable, right? This is one from Israel, kind of the same story, where you have this grid layout, where you have categories, you have popular searches, and you have products. Sometimes even products with prices, which I think is actually quite neat. There is one thing, however, that people desperately want to see in search results, and it's nowhere to be found. Like, these are very nice examples. Everything seems to be just fine over here, right? There is one fundamental thing that's missing, and that people desperately need. In search result suggestions, what is that? What is missing here? Nice search results, right? What do people really care about? Well, they care about price, that's for sure. They care about a good product, that's for sure. But what else? Availability? That would be useful. I mean, it would be useful not to show maybe unavailable products at times, or at least mark that they are unavailable. Anything else? What do you care most about? Your people, right? You also buy things. What do you really care when you make a decision to buy or not to buy? Sorry? Reviews. Why don't we get ratings here? Would that be great? That would be fantastic. And not only reviews, not only like 79 reviews. What else do we need there? Well, the score, right? The score, what is the score there? And ideally, even the distribution of the pricing as well. That would make it a really, really great experience. In fact, some websites do that. This is Coolblue, where they introduce the number of reviews, the rating, the pricing, and pretty much everything in a nice place. I like this. This is really neat, right? This is ultimately what people want to get. Even beyond that, Best Buy does the same thing for all the products as well. That's actually quite neat too. So you find those things actually used quite a bit. Indeed, that goes also for mobile, by the way. It's going to look very similar. You have, like on IKEA, for example, you have your searches, you have your categories, you have your products, you have your global search, and depending on what kind of thing that you're typing there, okay, that's just really disappointing. Just a second, I have to remove it here, right? You actually get to see everything that you actually need to see, which I think is actually pretty neat. And in fact, when you start looking around and across different sites, you will see not only do they show category, but also path or breadcrumbs to those categories to get a better understanding where you are in the scope. Here you get the pricing right here, how great that is. That's fantastic, right? And then here on top of that, I think that sometimes you also get recommendations for manuals and including also some section for things like help and service desk and other things, which is actually also very, very neat. So really good ideas over here, right? It also goes for websites in different languages, of course. It's kind of the same story. You can't really, I mean, it's always going to work everywhere. So that's pretty neat, right? Still, there is also one thing that people really get annoyed about. Because when you search, it's a process that's iterative. You start searching, and then you need to refine your searches, right? And what happens quite a lot is that you start typing, you click, let's say, on iron, right? And then you cannot change that query anymore because it's just blank. It's just empty. So I think I had an example here, but I don't think I have it right here anywhere. Ah, that's too bad. But the important thing is that whenever people are searching, we need to persist that search query that they're typing in because they're going to iterate on that. That might seem to be very simple, but very often it is not done at all, right? And finally, one really interesting thing there that I think is really, really critical to get right is this pattern. Please raise your hand, but without saying anything, if you know exactly what's going to happen when you click on this arrow. Please raise your hand. 4 people who probably work on search all the time, maybe. The discoverability of this feature, in my experience, is 8%. Nobody has a clue that this little icon here does something different than this. So anybody expects this to do the same thing? Like that query and that icon? Right? Is it just all the same thing or not? Who thinks that this is the same? It should be the same. Okay? Who thinks, no. I mean, we have a vertical separator. Come on. Right? Anybody? Yeah, so, I mean, again, 8% of people I've tested with have an understanding of what this is. Now, there is a difference between what you get when you click on the search query and what you get on an arrow, when you click on an arrow. So when I go back here in browser, let me show you. Hold on, let me just put it out here. So let's go to MediaMarkt, which is a big German retailer. So whenever I'm here and I type in, let's say, headset, well, I mean, we are in this business for a long time. We know what happens when you click on the search query, I guess. So we click on the headset. We search for the headset. What a miracle that is. That's great. That's pretty much what I was expecting. But if you remove it and you type in head, and you click here, it adds that query that you just had selected into your search box so you can continue your search query exploration. Who didn't know that? Yes, 92% of people have no idea at all. This is a really, I don't know why so many websites just copying each other, I guess, in doing that. Many people have no idea. This is a very useful feature for one particular task that people have. Where is it most useful? Now, remember what I talked about in the beginning with search design KPIs? I want to minimize the number of people going to 0 results pages. So this helps them navigate comfortably to some relevant results. That's great. But nobody has a clue how it works. So obviously, we need to fix it. And this, my friends, is not the way of designing it, right? How do we do it better? Well, there are a couple of options. One of them is to actually introduce something like this. Google did this redesign for their search a while back, I think last year, where they had the same thing in their Google search results as well. You have this arrow on the right that nobody really, it's actually there for now 5 years or 6. We still don't know what it is. So they changed it to have these little blobs showing up. When you start typing, you click on the blob, and it actually gets added or appended to your search box, right? So that's much better. People understand how this works. Also because there is a kind of a contrast here, right? On the one hand, we have these blobs. Sorry about the contrast. This might be difficult to see, right? But they also have your searches for different types of categories or whatever it is you're looking for. So this works, right? So if you want to improve your search discoverability of this or that feature, which is very, very useful, it's a good idea to show it this way, right? Finally, one more. I mean, I have it all written down here as a checklist, and it's coming up in just a second. But there is one incredible feature that I highly encourage you to test to improve the conversion or the findability of stuff on your e-commerce site. And that's coming from AO.com. Incredible, incredible. So what we want to get people is to minimize the time that they need to use to get anywhere or to get specifically to relevant results. How do we do that? We have our navigation. We have our search, but on top of that, you can also have a navigation query, which means you select whatever it is that you want here to do on that site. You pick a topic. I want to get a washing machine. What kind of washing machine? Front loader. How big should it be? Big. You define your price range. Boom. you get to relevant results within 8 seconds. There is no way to do that same amount of precision and get to that kind of relevancy with navigational search. Just impossible. So this is a really good idea to test. I would highly encourage you to do that. You'll probably increase your conversion, and as long as your search is working as well, that's probably going to be really only helpful. Right? And in fact, there are some sites doing that. Like if you look at Jeff Smith, for example, it kind of goes in a similar direction. Here's it went, right? So we get the search on the top. Was it the same one? I think it was, right? But at the same time, you also get these filters that allow you to be more specific and more precise right away. And again, this is what I'm talking about navigational pages. On navigational pages, we want to show navigation, or at least some sort of pathfinding that drives people where they want to go, right? Very central, not hidden behind the filters icon, not hidden behind the search icon, not hidden behind the navigation icon, just right there on navigational pages. That's what we need. And overall, if I had to sum it all up, these are the things that we probably need to think of when we're designing about search UX. That's a lot of stuff in here, right? And we could spend like literally days on this. But I think that these are the things that we probably need to keep in mind. And on top of that, specifically for autocomplete, I have my checklist of all the things and all the questions I raise with the development team or the design team. And again, don't worry, you get the slides anyway, so you don't have to download all of it. It's a lot of them. It's like 75 questions about autocomplete. People, like developers, don't like me, and I don't mind, if I'm being honest. That's OK. We sit down, and it's like, oh, have we thought about this? No. OK. Have we thought about this? No. Have we thought about this? Oh, that's too hard. We still need to think about it. OK. OK. But I mean, most of the time, we just communicate and collaborate to make sure that things are working, right? In the end, you know the best part about this? I never forget anything anymore. Never. Because my entire life is checklist. So this has been quite something, right? Whew, just to wrap up here, all this I think is 40 minutes. It's OK. It's OK. I want to kind of give you a bit of a hint about all of this and how it fits in the bigger scope of things. Now, what we've covered today are these things, right? Keep search visible, KPIs, no unsupported search query types, search suggestions on click on tab, supporting copy-paste, limit the number of items per search query, always show this diversity in terms of suggestions that we're displaying, persist search queries, or that I jumped, support faceted search within categories, so people can search within categories, that tab ahead pattern with pills, right? And also one thing that I just want to mention is keyboard navigation. You will have people using keyboard and navigating on your site. That's an accessibility requirement. But you know the best part for me? I've been doing this now for 18 years or so. And when I think about user delighters, what makes people happy, it's always the same boring things. I think we're too excited about exciting things. We're not excited enough about boring things. Like, there is nothing wrong with making a checkbox look like, I don't know, a checkbox. I have no problem with links being underlined. I like it when links are underlined, right? I have no problems with input boxes that, look like, I don't know, text boxes. So you understand that this is a text box. There is no problem here. Focus states, active states, helpful error messages, and a few other things. It's always the same. People have been complaining. People have been complaining about the same things for like 10, 15 years. So we can just fix that, right? And we can even be playful in that. I just want to show these examples, and then I'm done. This is the most annoying, frustrating, horrible pop-up I've ever seen in my life. I love it so much. I wish it was everywhere, on every single site. It's so great. It kind of fits within the story that Volkshotel in Netherlands have. That's fantastic. I love it so much. It just takes a little thing to make things really, really exciting to people, to kind of create this emotional connection. It's not necessarily just about the search box or the navigation or the filters. That makes a difference. Here's another example. The Scotch Malt Whisky Society allow you to type in the date of birth of 32nd day of 43rd month of 1547, and you still may enter the site because they know that most of you will be lying, right? And that's OK. That's OK. But you can also flip it and make it extremely exciting for people. Like, this is how Austin Beerworks does it. Are you 21? No. Huh, let's have a conversation. Are you at least 18? And then it kind of keeps going and going and going, right? So that kind of takes an exercise in patience, I guess, as well. Right? And it's really easy to do, right? It's really easy. It's like a couple of pop-ups. And there is no way to click yes anymore, right? And then, of course, you click on no, and then you end up in the world of pain, right? Right here. Oh, my favorite example ever. What is more boring in the entire universe than a title selector? The most boring thing ever. If you go to Boden today, you'll find this incredible thing that they have introduced, which is, you know what? Let's make it a journey. Who would you like to be today? Would you like to be a princess or Field Marshal Lord? And this is a big freaking drop-down. It has 49 options in there, right? Just go ahead and knock yourself out. No problem at all. Just choose your journey. And sometimes even, these things, little things, like make people laugh for a moment every now and again. So whenever you type, this character is really respectful and tries to pay attention to what you're doing. It's nice. Or just making people wait. What's the harm? You can create this emotional connection from everything, including one simple, boring toggle. Like, can you make this exciting? Like imagine subscribe to your newsletter, those kind of things, right? Maybe make people click multiple times. Like imagine you had a subscription box, right? Like, yes, I want to subscribe to your newsletter, and somebody opts in, and you're like, no, you need to do this again, right? Oh, they will not forget you, right? They will remember you for the rest of their life, right? And maybe this is kind of a long-term play that you can make there to really make people remember you, right? This is like quite a game. You actually need to click, I think, 19 times to get subscribed, right? So I also put all of those things together in this video course that I was creating for the last few years. So if you want to look into it, just search for Smart Interface Design Patterns, and you also get a friendly 15% off by doing that, right? OK, that's it, I think, from me for now. I'm very much open to your questions. I do have a lot of cats and meow, and thank you so much for being smashing, everyone.